Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's word study. You know, in last Tuesday's newscast, I presented some personal thoughts I've been having about time itself actually speeding up. And then, I almost never really know what the word study is going to be on Thursdays until the last minute. I mean, I have a list of things. All of you ask me to cover certain things, and I keep a list. And I may oftentimes think, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this one. But then last minute, the Ruach just, changes things on me. And like I said, last Tuesday, I mentioned on the newscast about this thing I've been thinking about, the time speeding up. And I didn't really consider it for word study because I couldn't think really of any scriptures where the word talks about time specifically, crunching or speeding up or whatever. But then one of our friends here on YouTube, her handle is Caregiver, along with all of you posting under the news, there was so much interest in this, and a lot of people confirming, yeah, we're seeing the same thing. Well, Caregiver gave me a link, and I looked at that, and that led to a few other links, and it was like, the Ruach just kept leading me back to this. I tried going to other studies. I thought, this is the one that I wanted to do. And then I would take a break and something would happen and this thing about time would come back up. So I says, all right, I give up. So I spent hours on this yesterday, just, getting notes in order and things. So, yeah, the Ruach wants us to take a look at this. Obviously, this thing that we're all recognizing is a sign. Watch therefore, because you don't know the hour in which Yeshua comes. And when he does come, it's gonna be in an hour that we did not expect. I don't care what I don't care how diligent you are. When he comes, nobody's gonna expect it. So anyway, these thoughts about time, actually began for me like 30 years ago while I was contemplating the fact that Elohim dwells outside of the time-space continuum. And that the Bible was not just another book, but, as Chuck Missler once put it, it's a supernatural object from outside the time-space continuum. Chuck is the one that got me thinking, like, what's he talking about, And I always liked that little ditty from Mr. Missler because it made so much sense. After all, the word was given to the prophets by the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit, from outside time, space. And that got me thinking about how elusive time actually is, Compare time spent in a dentist's office to time spent doing something you love and you know exactly what I'm getting at. As a child, summers seem to last so long, but as adults, that no longer happens. They go by rather quickly. And then there's another thing I saw years ago. I remember the first time I watched It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. Beautiful. One of the most beautiful movies ever made, I think. And the first time I was maybe 10 years old. And that scene at the end where Jimmy Stewart is running down Main Street shouting, "Merry Christmas, Bedford Falls!" Honestly, it seemed like that scene lasted, 5 minutes or more. The snow's coming down, he's running and waving, and Then I remembered watching that same scene when I was in my 30s and wondering what happened. As it turns out, that scene is like, I don't know, 20 or 30 seconds. And it certainly didn't captivate me the way it did when I was 10 years old. So, okay, children are new to the earth, full of absorbing every second, whereas adults don't do so much absorbing, being much more familiar with everything. That's understandable. But then, as time has gone by, I've continued watching this phenomenon in my own life, and I've noticed something beyond all that going on. Some 7 years ago, I started becoming more convinced that even though our clocks continue ticking out the same 60 seconds per minute and the same 24 hours per day, time itself is actually speeding up. And I always thought, the Earth is going around our solar system. Our solar system is going around the Milky Way. I'm sure the Milky Way is going around something else, and that's, and they're all moving somewhere. And I started thinking, they're moving really towards, no matter how you look at it, the second coming. And as the Milky Way in our solar system, and specifically the Earth, comes closer to this point in the grand universe where space and time come together for the second coming, time is changing, condensing or something. And, honestly, in the past month or so, since I started doing the Intifada updates on my newscast, it really started bugging me. Because it's becoming more prevalent. I always spend every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday creating my YouTube videos. I don't even take calls on those days because they are so filled with video production. In case you're not aware of it, a 20-minute video can take as much as 20 hours from start to finish to absolutely complete. There's a lot of work involved. Then comes Thursday morning, after I go live with the Thursday Word Study, I'm on vacation until Monday rolls around again. But I'm telling you, this past month has been crazy with it's Monday again. The weeks are just blinking by like days lately. So, like I said, I mentioned it in my newscast last Tuesday. And then later in the day when I started praying about what to do for today's word study, I kept getting led back to this subject time and time again, even after praying and chasing other ideas down. Another thing is, a few years ago I was reading Kepha 2, that is 2 Peter, chapter 3, the second half of verse 11 and verse 12 reads, "What kind of people ought you to be in Kodesh, dedicated, behavior and reverence, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of Elohim." Whoa, what? The NIV reads, "As you look forward to the day of Elohim and speed its coming." I thought, can we quicken his coming? Can we speed it up? What's that all about? And of course, that just got me going further down the road of this decades-long idea that the Ruach has been watering and growing in the garden of my dreams. Does our collective longing to be with him in his Malchut, his kingdom, have an effect? Of course it does. Prayers have a great effect on everything we pray about. And longing is certainly a very powerful form of prayer. I've said in previous videos that every thought we have is a prayer. You know, if you're walking around angry about something and having all these negative thoughts, understand those thoughts are like prayers. You are drawing those things you're thinking about into your existence. And conversely, if you're walking around constantly thinking about the Word and about Abba Father and our beloved Mashiach, Yeshua, and the indwelling Ruach, Spirit, Elohim's aware of that. And it has, I don't know, it has its effect. And so many of you have been posting under last Tuesday's newscast confirming that so many of us have been entertaining the same question. What's going on with time? The hours, days, and seasons are appearing to pass by faster than ever before, and, you know, we're all noticing it, especially those who are watchers. Now, recently, scientists have been shocked to discover that their measurements are indicating that the expansion of the universe is actually increasing rather than slowing down, as their Big Bang Theory suggests. And, you know, even when I was pretty young, like 13, 14 years old, and I heard this theory, I says, you know, they think it's like expanding. Oh, now they think that's slowing down. What are they going to do when it stops and it starts contracting? And, you know, maybe they come to realize that the universe itself is breathing. I mean, that theory of that young boy, I was like 13 years old, is just as solid as their theory. Anyway, they thought, oh, you know, it's expanding, but it's slowing down. They've been stunned to learn that it's actually not slowing down, it's accelerating. We look at Yov, that's Job, chapter 9, verse 8. It says, Yahweh alone stretches out the Shamayim, the heavens. Yahweh himself stretches out the Shamayim at whatever pace he sees fit, and stretching out the Shamayim unquestionably affects the dimension of time. There are several scriptures which imply a quickening during the earth's final days. Matthew, that's Matith Yahu, chapter 24, verses 7 and 8, says, For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be scarcities of food and deadly diseases and earthquakes in various places. And all these are the beginning of birth pains. And there where we see birth pains, in the Greek, the word is odin, Strong's number G5604, translated in the King James Version as sorrows. Probably the worst translation of odin of them all. You know, most others will say birth pangs or birth pains. And birth pains is much more accurate translation of the Greek word odin, which clearly presents the idea of quickening. The pains continually grow closer together and become greater in strength. But in Hebrew, the word would be chevel, means birth pains. And this word also refers to a measuring line, a chevel. And in the Aramaic English New Testament, we see the Aramaic word rachevla. And rachevla is spelled resh, chet, beit, lamed, aleph. Rachevla. Resh, picture of a man's head, has to do with who your headship is, and what your thoughts are on. Chet, picture of a fence, divides, protects, and surrounds. Has to do with the netchetef, the rapture, and it has to do with the operation of the gifts of the Ruach, gifts of the Spirit. And then Beit, picture of a house. Beit talks of Yeshua and of the family of Yeshua. And then we have Lamed, picture of a shepherd's staff. Talks about the leader and teacher of the flock. Has to do with being yoked to and taught by Yeshua. And then finally we have Aleph, picture of an ox head. Has to do with being yoked to and taught by Abba, Father. Now the heart of this word is Beit, the house and family of Yeshua. Those who are identified by their thoughts being on their headship, Elohim. Those who are surrounded by his Gader HaKodesh, that's his hedge of protection. Those who are of the netchetef, the rapture, being transformed and operating in the gifts of the Ruach. Those who are yoked to and taught by Yeshua, and those who are yoked to and taught by Abba, Father, Yahuwah. So, in Matthew chapter 24, verse 8, Yeshua is saying that these signs are the beginning of Rechevla, the signs that begin a quickening of events which lead up to the netchetef, of course, because the netchetef is just before the time of the tribulation, the time of Jacob's trouble, the 70th week of Daniel. Then the Ruach tells us through Shaul, that's Paul, in Romans chapter 8, verse 22, we know that all the creation groans together and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now. They suffer the quickening until now. What's the quickening? The pains of childbirth, birth pains. Isn't that, in a sense, it's a condensing, you know? The birth pains start. They get closer together, they get stronger. What? They are, crunching down into that moment of birth. So, not only do we notice this quickening, but all of creation does. All of the creation itself strains with increased occurrences as the time of the end draws near, and as the time of the netchetef, the rapture, draws near. Also, the word tells us that time is a physical property and is therefore part of Elohim's creation. We look at Bereshit, that's Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, Elohim created by forming from nothing that yet existed the Shamayim, the heavens, and the earth. He created everything we know from nothing that was already there. That includes time. Formed from nothing. Time was a part of what was formed from nothing that existed into the Shamayim and the earth. And so the dimension we call time itself will also suffer these birth pains. It will travail and strain itself, and perhaps it will condense or contract as the final days come to a climax. Yeshua tells us in Matthew chapter 24, verse 29, immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the Shamayim, and the powers of the Shamayim will be shaken. Bearing that in mind, we're also told in Bereshit, Genesis, chapter 1, verses 14 through 16, that Elohim created the sun, the moon, and the stars in the Shamayim for signs and moedim, appointed times, and for days and years. Now, if the sun, the moon, and the stars are affected in these last days, and the very powers of the Shamayim are shaken, certainly this indicates a significant disruption in how the dimension of time passes. Amos, chapter 8, verse 9 tells us, "It shall come about in that day, says Yahweh Elohim, that I shall cause the sun to go down at noon, and I shall darken the earth in broad daylight." Down at noon, he's talking in reference to Jerusalem. And since Elohim changes the times and the seasons as he sees fit, that includes the Moedim. Everybody's always trying to nail those down. Look at Daniel chapter 2, verse 21. It should be no surprise that his word anticipates this time dilation or acceleration, crunching. Daniel chapter 12, verse 4, we read, "As for you, Daniel, conceal these words and seal up the scroll until the end of time." What does that one mean? You could probably pick that one apart too. Continuing, it says, "Many will go back and forth and search anxiously through the scroll," through the word, "and knowledge," that is, knowledge of the purpose of Elohim as revealed by his Navi'im, his prophets, back to the word again, "will greatly increase." And since the Industrial Revolution, multitudes have been running to and fro, just as prophesied. And just recently, in the past 10 to 15 years, we're certainly seeing an explosion of available knowledge. Computers and internet. It's estimated that our cumulative knowledge is doubling every 5 years now. Doubling every 5 years. And this exponential increase in available knowledge, combined with the ability to travel conveniently at greatly accelerated speeds, is beyond what anyone could have imagined even just a few decades ago. During the tribulation, we see that the judgments will follow in rapid succession. Chazon, that's Revelation chapter 11, verse 14, reads, "The second woe is past. Behold, the third woe is coming quickly." Revelation 3:11, Yeshua says, "I am coming quickly." And Yeshua reiterates 3 times in the last chapter of Revelation that he's coming quickly. Look at chapter 22, verses 7, 12, and 20. Then we see in Zephaniah, that's Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 14, "The great judgment day of Yahweh is near, near and coming very quickly." This word quickly, see it all over the place. In the Hebrew, Strong's number H3966, the word is me'od, spelled mem, aleph, dalet. Mem, picture of water, has to do with the word and the blood of Yeshua. It also talks about chaos in this case. Then we have aleph, picture of the ox head being yoked to and taught by Abba Father. And then we have dalet, picture of a door. Well, Yeshua is the door. Dalet talks about movement in and out of this door. In and out of the 4 dimensions of space and time. That's a door we will pass through in the Nechetef. So this word we see as quickly, that would be me'od, speaks of the work of Yeshua and those who are yoked to and taught by Abba Father Yahweh, being affected by the four dimensions of space and time. How? Perhaps by noticing this crunching time thing, but especially being taken out of the four dimensions of space and time through the door, Dalet, in the Nechatef. So this quickening, me'od, interesting word. Now, every major last days event prophesied in the Word is being brought into place today. Widespread deception in Yeshua's name. Matthew chapter 24, verses 4 and 5, verse 11, verses 24 through 26. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 2. Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. Global communications. Revelation chapter 11, verses 9 and 10. Also chapter 17, verse 8. A global cry for peace. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3. Chaotic weather prevailing. How many years have you been talking about the weather? You know, I don't know. I might have mentioned this in a previous video, but I mean, I'm talking 30 years ago at least. I always used to say, and I thought I was quoting the Word, that we wouldn't know the seasons but for the leaves on the trees. I don't know. I could, and I mean, I've looked for years and years and years. It's nowhere in the Word. But I used to tell people that all the time, and I thought I knew the Scripture. I imagine now that it's just the Ruach telling me, in the last days, you won't know the seasons, except for the leaves on the trees. And, you know, chaotic weather is prevailing. I'm sure everyone notices, geez, it wasn't like this when I was a kid. Look at Lucas, chapter 21, verses 25 and 26. Then a move toward a global government, Daniel chapter 2 verses 40 through 44 and chapter 7 verse 23, Revelation chapter 13 verses 7 and 8, technology capable of tracking the world's population, Revelation 13 verses 16 and 17, Israel being regathered into their homeland after being dispersed for some 2,000 years. Happened in 1947 and established, or 48, and established in 67. Look at Isaiah chapter 11 verses 11 and 12, chapter 43 verses 5 and 6, and chapter 66 verse 8. Jeremiah chapter 31 verses 7 through 10, and Ezekiel chapter 37 verses 21 and 22, and also chapter 38 verse 8. Jerusalem being a burdensome stone to all nations. Boy, is that one flowering. Look at Zechariah chapter 12 verses 2 and 3. Israel prospering economically, Ezekiel 38 verses 12 and 13. Preparations to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, Daniel 9:27 and 12:11. Marcos chapter 13 verse 14. Revelation chapter 11 verses 1 and 2. They're ready to put the temple together. They have everything they need except for a decision about the exact location, and they could assemble it all in 2 or 3 months' time. Russia, Iran, and other countries rising as military powers and preparing a surprise attack on Israel. Russia and Iran they wouldn't even look at each other, much less talk to each other, I don't know, 10 years ago. Now they're, you know, bedfellows, you might say. Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38. Anti-Semitism increasing worldwide. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 37, Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 18, and chapter 44 verse 8. Homosexuality being flaunted and broadly accepted. Genesis chapter 19, Luke 17 verses 28 through 30, and Jude, Yahudah, chapter 1, verse 7. A movement towards a global religion, Revelation 13:8, Revelation chapter 17. Lawlessness abounding. Lawlessness especially meaning a rejection of the authority of Elohim. Matthew 24:12, Revelation 9:21. Babylon re-emerging on the world scene. Zechariah chapter 5 verse 11. Isaiah, Yeshayahu chapter 13. Chazon, Revelation chapters 17 through 19. Increased interest in the occult, witchcraft, and pharmakeia, pharmaceuticals. Revelation chapter 9 verse 21, chapter 18 verse 23, chapter 21 verse 8, Isaiah chapter 47 verses 9 through 15, Micah chapter 5 verses 10 through 15, the kings of the east rising, Revelation 9 verses 14 through 16, and chapter 16 verse 12. So, is time speeding up? I think so, my friends. But no matter what, one thing is for sure. The word is true, and Yeshua's return is very near. Now, if you're not sure about your own salvation or the salvation of someone you care about, you'll see this graphic at the end of this video, as well as a text link in the Show More section beneath this video that you can click on. And there, I'll give you all the information you need. But, look up, my friends, for our redemption draweth near. It's quickening. And we've all been seeing it, not in the physical, but in the spiritual. So, that's our study for this week. As always, I hope and I pray that this is and will continue to be, a beracha to you and yours. Abba willing, I'll see you here again next week. And until then, shalom, my friends.
Now 2,000 years have gone by, it's another working day. Some would rather let it lie.